was very lucky. I mean, I fell into drug use in my teens, and it got progressively more sort of central to my life, really. I always had a kind of double life, because even up to the very end of my using, I was still functioning in one sense. You know, I was attending university. It was, but I don't know. I mean, people analyze their own use of drugs and things. I suspect that mine was about feeling very kind of lost in the world. I don't think I was particularly hurt or traumatized, but I didn't really feel I had a purchase on life. I didn't really have any guidance, or didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And drugs were also associated with people that I thought were glamorous, which is rock and roll musicians, and I was trying to be one of them. And so it kind of got worse and worse, and in the end I got fed up with it. And after sort of 8 years of injecting heroin use, I decided that I wanted some help, and I went off to a clinic. Now, again, I was very, very lucky, because at that time, the clinics that ran what was called the Minnesota model, some of them were very confrontative and very dogmatic. And if I'd been to one of those, I would have been out the door in a couple of days. I wouldn't have been able to handle it, or they wouldn't be able to handle me. Well, I went to one that was much more sort of humanistic and client-centered, and they introduced me to Narcotics Anonymous, which was, again, I was really lucky. I mean, I think I went to NA in London in the mid-'80s, early 80s, and it was a very tolerant, pluralistic. I mean, a lot of the stuff in the meetings was about, not judging other people's recoveries, about being tolerant of other people, of not, and that sort of pluralism is not there in all 12-step societies. Sometimes they're very kind of rigid, and it works for a lot of people that way, but it would not have worked for me. I would never have stayed if somehow I'd been corralled into a rigorous way of life that I needed that freedom to move around.
Sure. And before you say a little bit more about that, one of the things that strikes me, of course, is what you're saying is that actually somehow, and we know that these two words are really important in people's journeys, but warmth and acceptance is a really important early, you're talking about people, and if you meet something else, it's actually very difficult to just do anything else. The journey almost stops, doesn't it? And you retreat back to where you were, yes?
It's a bit more subtle than that, though, because I think warmth and acceptance is there even in the rigid versions of 12 steps.
Oh, okay, good.
People are very welcomed, and
that's nicely nuanced. Go on.
But it's more, that it's that kind of happy clappy, entering into a sort of orthodoxy, which doesn't appeal to me at all. That you have this rigorous routine. Now, again, this is personality stuff. I mean, some people absolutely adore that, and that's what they want, and they find gratification from the routine and from the ringing your sponsor all the time. And there's again, not for me at all. And what was so nice was that the 12-step environment for me was I could find a place in it. I met some really interesting, open-minded people in London and A, many of whom are still attending, yeah, it was just lucky that I found that version, because otherwise I think I probably wouldn't have stuck around. And it's kind of important to me still. I mean, I am much more respectful and understanding of people who like a much more rigorous and kind of structured approach to things. But I also, from my own experience, know that doesn't work for everyone, and that luckily, if someone comes to me and has difficulties with the 12-step resource, or sometimes it might not be for them, but at least I can give an example of how actually you don't have to be the kind of stereotypical 12-stepper to fit into the 12-step fellowships.
And then, I have heard some people say to me, Tim, I don't know but I have heard some people say to me that they sometimes feel that you get a little bit more of that sometimes in NA than you do in AA. Sometimes there's a little bit more,
I mean, I was horrified to learn that there was a sort of fundamentalist version of NA in this country where people were, obliged to call their sponsors at 6 a.m. and get on their knees and things. But so I'm not sure. I think the fellowships kind of shape themselves according to the social need.
Yes, of course.
people create the kind of meetings that suit them, and I think that's why people are advised to try a big range of them before making up their mind, because they do vary, you know. I mean, I also had no work, and I kind of hung around in London for 2 years, where NA was my job. You know, I was fully committed to it. I loved it, found it very interesting and social, and there was lots to do. You know, we organised conventions and parties and things like that. But I didn't have any work, and so I wrote off to
I quite like that idea that you've swapped the graft of trying to keep a drug dependency going for the graft of like...
Yeah. Well, in a way, yeah. But it was that I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do.